Welcome to Garbage In, Garbage Out, the podcast where we unlearn what the world has taught us and embrace the truth of God's kingdom. I'm your host, Noxie, and I'm glad you're here. This is episode 2 of Garbage In, Garbage Out. And our topic today is the overflowing cup, generosity as God's call. So today we'll be speaking about the power of giving, the power of emptying your cup to be full. And we base our topic from Proverbs 3:27 and 28, which reads, "Do not withhold good from those to whom it is due, when it is in your power to act. Do not say to your neighbor, 'Come back tomorrow, and I'll give it to you,' when you already have it with you." I mean, I find myself in situations like these, be it's payday, and there is that specific person in my life that will constantly ask me for money on payday. And because I know I have this item or I have this money that they need or that they're asking for, and I'd say, "I don't have it, come back tomorrow." It even works, when you have that friend that doesn't pay back, and they're the ones that now come and ask you money. And you hesitate, and you say, "Come back tomorrow." Yet in Proverbs, we're instructed to give whenever we have the opportunity to. So the question we ask ourselves today is that, are we withholding good out of fear of losing what we have? Or are we missing out on the fullness of God's blessings? So let's unpack what Proverbs actually says to us. Let's unpack it a bit and understand what it's calling us to do. So verse 27 says, "Do not withhold good from those to whom it is due, when it is in your power to act." If you are blessed with something, could be financial, could be educational, could be time, could be literally anything. But if you are blessed with something, it is in your power to give. You are instructed to give. That is what we're doing. That is what we are meant to do. And yet what we do is that we withhold it. And because God knows that we're going to withhold it, He says, do not withhold good. Do not withhold good. If you have money, give. If you have time, give. If you have a skill, give. Why is it that we constantly put in this place that when we have the power to give, we either hesitate, we procrastinate, or we have this worldly notion that by giving, we have to get something in return, we have to get recognition? Why is it that whenever we are in the position of giving, or we have the power of giving, we use it against other people? We use it as a way of manipulation. We use it as a way of gaining control of people. We use it as a way of influence. We're not given power to do that. Anytime you're given anything, anytime that God blesses you with abundance, He is calling you to liberate. Whenever you have the opportunity to give, give. Don't procrastinate. Procrastination is not going to get you anywhere. And also, you are not losing anything by giving. In fact, you're gaining. The more you give, the more you gain. But the trick is that you shouldn't give because you want to gain. And then verse 28 says, "Do not say to your neighbor, 'Come back tomorrow, and I'll give it to you,' when you already have it with you." You see, this proverb, it hits a bit too deep for me, because I find myself falling to this all the time. You have that untrusted friend who you know never pays you back. And one thing I've had to learn is that it doesn't matter that they don't pay you back. God says, when you have it, give. And it can be a loss, eh? It can be a loss. And I think that's what we're afraid of. We're afraid of giving because we see giving as a point of depletion. Yeah, I don't have money right now. You're asking me for money. And you're asking me to give you the last of mine. But did not God say that He will sustain us? Did not God say He will provide for us? Did not God say He will give us prosperity? And yet here you are withholding what He has given you and not wanting to let go. And the perfect example I take from this is in Mark 12, verse 41 to 43. This is when we see the widow making her offer. And Jesus says that this widow has offered more than everyone who made an offering. And the reason why that widow had offered more is because she gave her all. She gave all she had. You know, being at that point where you add, with this last coin, it's between me and death. But in this world where everything is so materialistic, we hold on to these things, we hold on to these positions, and sometimes they don't even serve us. But this widow gave her last. And she gets rewarded because of faith. She was not expecting praise from anyone. She was not expecting a reward from anyone. She gave her all. She gave all that she had to God. And we find the contrast in Mark 10, where we meet the rich young ruler. So the rich young ruler, he had everything. He was rich. He had the cattle. He had the houses. He had everything you could think of. And he goes to Jesus and, he asks him, what can I do to follow you? I follow the law. I do this. I do that. That's all good. But then Jesus then turns to him and says, okay, cool. I hear what you have to say. Right? So in order to follow me, sell everything that you have. And when you get that money, give it to the poor. And the Bible records that he left with a broken heart. That's it. Sell all that you have and give it to the poor. So we are not able to trust God with what he has blessed us with. He calls us to himself. He tells us to give. He asks us to put ourselves in positions that whenever we have the opportunity to give, we should take it. And yet would always say that, come tomorrow, thinking that tomorrow is promised, whereas it's not. So it means that we don't trust God with his provisions. We don't trust God that he will sustain us. We don't trust God that he will refill the cups that he has filled. Because it comes to a point where now you are thinking on the level that everything you do is because of your own might. Hence, you are reluctant on giving. So now the world has pushed us to a point where we see the world in a form of scarcity. That if you give, you have less. We see it as, if I have 2 and I give you 1, I'm left with 1. But in God's kingdom, it remains as 2 because God will always add. You have 2, you give 1 away, he adds another. And the things that he doesn't even add 1 more, he will add 2 more. And you'll have 3. And you give 1 away and he adds 4 more. In God's kingdom, the more you give, the more He blesses you because He constantly puts you in a position to give again. And the thing is that right now we also operate in this new way of philanthropy where it's all about, or rather, I'm just quote it as social media philanthropy, where it's tied to recognition. Some do it for tax benefits, or someone is building their own personal brand. Nobody needs to know that I helped you start your business. Nobody needs to know that I'm the reason why you are a graduate today. Nobody needs to know that the MacBook that you're using, I bought it for you. Nobody needs to know that I borrowed you 500 for you to get the outfit that you're wearing today. Nobody needs to know. Neither do they need to be reminded. Also, I am not helping you so that tomorrow, when I'm in trouble, I can come to you and say, hey, remember when it was rough back then? I was there and I helped you. So now you have to help me. That's not the kind of giving that God has called us to. God has called us to a giving of compassion and love. He has called us to a place of multiplication. One thing I love about God is that things don't multiply in His hands, things multiply in our hands. He gives you the skill to multiply it. And you look at when Jesus fed the 5,000, the food did not multiply in Jesus's hand. He prayed for it and He broke it and divided it among the disciples. And yet, as the disciples started giving to each group of 50, to each group of 100, the food began to multiply. That they even had crumbs left that filled 12 barrels. Do you understand the concept? When you give, He multiplies. And not only does He multiplies, He also leaves leftovers. So why wouldn't you give? Why would you hold back from giving? And through it all, Jesus wasn't diminished by His generosity. He did not feel like some sort of power is leaving Him. He did not feel lesser. He did not feel that His cup is running dry. You see, there's this notion of, I need to fill my cup first so that I can pour into you. And most of the time, when we're talking about this cup, we're talking about financial. I fill my cup first, then I pour into you. And I think that's where I learned that Jesus' kingdom is upside down. Jesus does not say you first. He says start with the other person. Fill their cup. And because you're filling their cup, your cup becomes full. That's how it works. Fill their cup. While you're filling their cup, your cup becomes full. So today I have 4 application points for us this week. Just 4 application points. We're going to start small. Try look for that one person or find an opportunity to give, whether it's time, whether it's resources, whether it's kindness. Just find an opportunity to give and don't pass it. The second thing is to ensure that when you're giving, there are no strings attached. Let us give without expecting anything back. Let it not be some sort of transaction that is 2 ways. Let it not even be for recognition, but to be selfless, to not keep score, to just give for the sake of giving. Give because God is generous. Thirdly, we come to trusting God in His provision, trusting that God will provide. Trusting that God is able to replenish what we give away tenfold. Have you realized that people who give the most receive the most. And in 2 Corinthians 9, it talks about the one who sows generously will reap generously. What you plant will be shown back to you. So if you go planting good seeds, you will receive the rewards of those seeds. So let us trust God's provision. And lastly, point number 4, practical things. And this one I think is a bit hard to put into action, which is overcoming procrastination. For me, this is something that I battle with each and every day. There is never going to be a better time to give. There's never going to be a good time to give. There's never going to be a perfect time to give. We have created this concept that there is a certain time when I have to give in the right time. But the problem is that we don't own time. We exist on a time spectrum. Only God can say when the time is right, because He exists out of time. So we have created this notion of creating these spaces of having a time to give. Tomorrow is not promised. For some people, today might be their last day. As unfortunate as it is, but that's the reality that we're living in. So anytime you have an opportunity to give, and do not withhold it. Don't tell anyone. And I feel when it says anyone, include yourself in that. Don't tell anyone or yourself that I will give it tomorrow. When you have the time now, use the now. Because right now we are existing in the now. Now is all you have. Yesterday is dead and gone. Tomorrow is unknown. Now is all you have. So let us use now. And I want to remind you that giving isn't about depleting yourself. It's actually about opening yourself to God's blessings. He fills what is empty with His name. You can acquire all the riches of this earth, but without God, you're empty. Like, give everything away. Give everything you own away. Let us aim to be like the widow who offered the last she had as a sign of faith, rather than being like the rich young ruler, having everything that the world could offer, and yet losing to walk with Christ. So ask yourself a question. Are you holding out of fear of scarcity? Are you holding out from giving because you think that you won't have enough or God will not sustain you? So this week, try to identify one opportunity where you can give, whether it's big or small, and also follow it without delay. Don't wait for tomorrow. Don't wait for next week or next month or next year, because we don't know what that looks like. And I think it should be our prayer to ask God for guidance on where and how to be generous. And let Him reveal that to us. Because when we freely give, we mirror God's heart and open the door for His blessings to flow abundantly in our lives. The world may say giving leaves us with less, but in God's economy, our cup always overflows. Let us operate in God's economy. Let us strive to build God's economy. Being in a community that gives generously, that gives selflessly, that gives without expecting anything back, that gives without recognition. Let us build God's economy. Because as the world says, if the more you give, the less you get, God says, the more you give, the more I bless you. I hope you have a blessed week. Thank you for joining me today on Garbage In, Garbage Out. As we continue on this journey of unlearning the world's ways and embracing God's wisdom, remember, what we allow into our hearts shapes our lives. If today's episode resonated with you, don't forget to subscribe, share, and leave a review. Let's keep growing together, one revelation at a time. Until next time, guard your heart, live with purpose, and let God's truth guide your every step. Stay blessed and see you in the next episode.